When you look at our women, you don't see them wearing dresses, dressing modestly on a regular. A lot of times they're wearing what? They're wearing the leggings. They're wearing the tight jeans that show off their body, their curves. They're just advertising themselves to be jump-offs.
Right.
Wrong or right?
Right.
Right. So the other nations see this. They know where we came from. We're the only ones who are ignorant.
Right.
Let's believe the white man knows where we came from. The Arab man knows where we came from. The Chinese man knows where we came from. It's just us who have been lost.
That's right.
We walk around and now we're just, oh, I'm just a nigga. That's it. I'm here to have sex. That was what they taught us in slavery.
Right.
And now they look at us like, man, look at these were the people of God. These are God's chosen. Look at how they're living.
Right.
They got single parent households. They're number one in that.
Bring it out.
How are they God's chosen people? They're astonished by us. Read that from the top again.
And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword.
A byword is being called outside of your God-given name. A proverb is a wise saying. They didn't understand, hey, this is the order and structure that should be in the black and Hispanic household or in our communities.
Right.
But for us, we don't see that. Now, they taught us, hey, you're just niggas now. That's what they call us, bywords, right? That's being called outside your God-given name. African American, that's part of that.
Right.
But that comes with a mindset, that comes with a mentality. And just like the officer brought out, being modest, that used to be part of ours. But now we live like niggas because we dress like it. We look at ourselves as it. We even call ourselves that.
Right.
And now, so what we have to do is be able to look and say, okay, what does God want for me to do? And how am I going to get better from there? Verse 48.
Verse 48.
Go ahead.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
Understand, sis, everything in society has been set up by people that are against us.
Right.
That's right.
Nothing that you see in the United States is set up for the benefit of black and Hispanic men and women, the Israelites,
Right.
according to the Bible. Nothing you see is for our benefit. Let's read on and see. Well, actually, before I get that, would your enemy, if you know somebody hates your guts, would you trust them? No. Would you trust them if they handed you food and said, hey, this is supposed to heal you? Would you trust that they're trying to give you something good, or would you be like, they probably spitting this? You wouldn't trust them, right?
Right.
Read on.
Which the Lord shall send against thee.
God allowed it to happen because our sisters went away from that modesty. Our brothers went away from seeking out God. We started following false gods.
Right.
Nowadays we choose, in today's society we choose, I prefer the gangbanging lifestyle. I'd rather be a sports player than understand I'm God's chosen people. Read on.
And hunger.
And hunger. Says, what's a staple food in the black household? Or when you think of black people, what's a food that you think of? Ribs. What type of ribs? Pork ribs. Where did we get that from? Huh? From the farm. No, but understand, from the top of the verse, that our enemies.
Right.
Like the officer brought up, we had our own culture. We had our own way of living and doing things. You understand, black people didn't eat pork until we were enslaved?
Right.
Not black people. Black people eat pork. The Israelites, because that's who we are.
Right.
We didn't eat pork until we were enslaved.
Teach.
That's what happened. Just like how our sisters didn't wear dresses until we were enslaved. But the Bible's going to say that.
Right.
Did you know that we didn't eat pork as a people? Well, forget that in Leviticus. Then we're going to come right back. We got to, and I want to show you this so you understand what's our culture as a people, because the Bible is true black culture. It's not hip-hop.
Right.
Because that's what we think. We think hip-hop is our culture. It's not. That's set up our enemies to destroy us.
Right.
The Bible is the black man's culture.
Right.
The Israelite man and woman's culture. Read that.
Leviticus chapter 11 and verse 7. And the swine, though he divide the hoof.
So sis, it says the swine. What's a swine?
Right out.
Swine, it's a pig.
Right.
It's a pork.
Right.
Yeah, pig. Swine is a pig. So let's see what God says about a pig. And remember, the people who taught us, who gave us our dietary, or our diets, the things that we have in our communities, when you think of black culture, you think of pig ribs.
Right.
We were taught that in slavery. So remember, God said they were our what? Who enslaved us?
White man.
God says our enemies.
That's
The
right.
so-called white man, the Chinese, the Arab. And they taught us how to eat.
Right.
Remember, God says we're serving them for food. So let's see what God says about the food we eat. Read that.
And the swine, though he divide the hoof, and be cloven footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. He is unclean to you.
What did God say the pig was to us? Huh? No, listen to this part again. Read that again.
And the swine, though he divide the hoof and be cloven footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. He is unclean to you.
What did God just call the pig? Unclean.
That's right.
Unclean. It's a dirty animal. Pigs, they'll eat anything. They'll eat human body parts.
Right.
They'll eat each other, and they actually feed them each other. They'll grind up a dead pig, put it in the slop, and feed it back.
Right.
And then you eat that.
Damn.
Have you ever seen those videos where they pour Coke on a pork, what is it called, a pork chop? And then worms start coming out? That's what you're putting in your body.
That's right.
That's what you're putting in your body. But God said that wasn't part of our culture, because guess what? We were modest in everything we did, even in how we ate. We were very specific, particular about what we ate, and we were careful and mindful about what we put in our bodies.
Right.
Nowadays we eat anything and everything. Shrimp, crab, lobster, pork. But God says we're not supposed to eat those things.
That's right.
You see right now is the resurrection of the 12 tribes of Israel. This ain't all of it. This is just a small drop in of what's happening. So be afraid. Be afraid. But our brothers and sisters, rejoice. The kingdom of heaven is at hand.
Go back to that. Deuteronomy 28.
Verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
And we got to understand that's a very important part, because you said you wouldn't trust somebody you know is your enemy. Well, guess what? Our enemy did this to us and gave us pork. Read.
Which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger.
So now when we're hungry, guess what happened when we were hungry in slavery? What do you think they gave us to eat?
Bring it out.
They gave us pork.
Right.
Why do you think chitlins used to be so popular and it's still eaten a lot in the South? I know you don't like it. You probably got family members that eat it up, huh? My pops was eating. I was like, before I understood who I was and I was an Israelite, my pops was eating that stuff and I was like, that's disgusting. I smell poop in the house.
Right.
You over here eating pig poop, pig intestines. But you gotta understand, that was slave food. We had to do what we could with what we had.
Bring it out.
And part of that was eating pig.
Right.
Right? The same thing in Hispanic households. Because guess what, my brother, you're Hispanic? Well, you Mexican? Would you say you're Mexican though? Yeah. Okay, so guess what? Because guess what, my sister? We both did it as a people.
Right.
According to the Bible, you're an Israelite from the tribe of Issachar.
That's right.
The Mexicans and the blacks, we were enslaved together as a people. And when we were enslaved, guess what? They said, you're going to eat pork. You eat pork? You don't eat pig? Carnitas? Chicharrón? Yes! We eat that as a people.
Right.
Where did you learn that from?
My grandparents.
Your grandparents. You see how it's generational? Guess what? Do you believe in the Bible? Does the Bible say we should eat pork?
Bring it out.
It doesn't. So then why do we do it? Because why?
Because my grandparents.
Because your grandparents. You ain't poor because your parents, huh? Right? They taught us wrong.
Right.
Because they were taught wrong.
Right.
Just like how they taught us to dress incorrectly. What we're doing is showing who we are according to the Bible, us being the Israelites. and what our true culture is and what God wants from us.
Teach.
Keep up. Read Deuteronomy chapter 28 again. What's your name again? Nathaniel? My name is Josiah. Listen to this. Read.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger.
Everything we learned about our food, we got that from the people that colonized us. Because guess what? Just like so-called blacks, people from the tribe of Judah were colonized and enslaved, Mexicans were enslaved by the Spaniards, by the conquistadors. Did you know that?
Right.
You didn't know that. You see how they don't teach us our history? Mike, Jaden, do you know about slavery? You see how they're not teaching him anything about his history? They don't want us to understand who we are or have any connection. Your people were enslaved and were forced to eat pork. Your people, sis, were enslaved and forced to eat pork. That's the only reason why we do it today. Read.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst.
And in thirst. Lamentations 5. To hold that, go to Lamentations 5 and 2. So check this out now, sis. Check this out, my brother. Who owned this land before the white man came over here and took it over? Native Americans. California specifically was owned by the so-called Mexicans. The people from the tribe of Issachar, because that's who you are. You're not Mexican. And we're going to touch on that. But check this out now, sis. Do we own the water that's produced in the water bottles that you have? We don't. What about the water that comes out of your shower head? Do you produce that water? Do you go to the river source that they get that from, the dam? No. Why? Because God said we will serve our enemies for these things.
Right.
Let's see. Read this. This is very important. Read that.
Lamentations chapter 5 verse 2.
Go ahead.
Our inheritance is turned to strangers.
Your inheritance, that comes with your land, your culture, everything was stripped from us. God said it will be turned to strangers. You ever ask yourself, you never ask yourself, how come we just say we're black? How can we eat the pork that we eat? Why do we choose these foods? You never ask yourself, why don't Mexicans own California anymore? Why do I eat chicharrones? Why do I eat carnitas? Why do I say I'm Hispanic, which means property of Spain? You ever ask those questions? Sometimes. God said this happened because we broke his laws, and our inheritance was turned to strangers. To who?
Right.
Our inheritance was turned to strangers. Our houses to aliens.
Our heritage was turned to strangers, to another nation of people. A stranger is somebody you don't know, right? Guess what? We're the same people. Now check this out. This gets even heavier. Who do they call aliens today? Who do they call aliens today, my brother? Illegal aliens. Who do they call that? You don't know who they call illegal aliens? Who do they say are illegal aliens today? Huh? Mexican immigrants. Am I right or wrong, sis? Right. But God says they were the aliens because this land belonged to the Hispanics.
That's right.
Right. Come over here, my brother. This land belonged to the Hispanics. God says we are the Israelites. Come on over to the front, to the front, to the front. God says the Israelites would lose their land and lose their heritage, and it would be turned to strangers. Read.
We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows.
So, now go back to Deuteronomy chapter 28. It says we will be orphans and fatherless. Guess what they did to us as a people historically? When they came over to this land, when they came and colonized us and took us from the places we were at, my sister, my brother, they killed the elders of our tribes. They killed the leaders. They made our mothers widows. And they still do that to this day because we're all the black and Hispanic men that aren't on drugs and homeless. Huh? They're working, but a lot of them end up where? On the streets, in prison, homeless. We get locked up in prisons, they end up on jails. That's making mothers widows. That's taking out the man out the household. And now check this out. How many brothers do you know, young Hispanic and black brothers do you know that grew up without fathers in the house? A lot of them. What about yourself? You say you too. What about you, sis? How many do you know? A lot. God said this would happen to us. Right? Go ahead.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst.
So we serve our enemies in thirst. The people who took our heritage, where God said our heritage was turned to strangers in Lamentations, they took the water, the resources, and now they're selling it back to you.
What is a nation?
Nation is family. Nation is community. Nation is men leading by example. Nation is women's support. Nation is children with role models.